Hey guys, just want to check I'm live on Facebook as well. Come on, Facebook. Yep. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back in another video, and welcome to the second part of my list of how dyslexic thinking could be used to benefit Italian football teams, including the national team Torino, as it's a Thursday, and the use of alliterations, and Celtic as well, which are Italian teams and Celtic as well. Celtic playing Roma tonight. I think they're still playing, and last time I checked, Roma winning 3-0. I wanted Roma to win 4-0 because normally I love Celtic, but I prefer Italian teams just a tiny bit more, and Roma is my favourite club. As I mentioned in part one, my favourite football teams, I might talk about, my favourite sports team generally even, I might mention them again later, but and I mentioned them before, but I'm hoping the confidence is good though, and I'm hoping the manager is not as bad as a part of me fears, like people are saying it's not good enough. But I'll talk a bit more about that in the list itself. So these are pointers number 11 to 20. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope I don't repeat myself too much. I hope I don't bore you. But here goes. So I'm going to try not to say too much in the intro. I'm just going to try and crack on with it. So number 11, thinking, I do mention a lot about changing and like what changes need to be made. So for instance, what Celtic could do to improve, what Torino could do to improve, what Italian football itself generally could do to improve the national team or whatever, what needs to be changed, like could it become more attack-minded and that kind of thing, or just generally what could it do to generally, that is, what could it or they do respectively to improve. So yeah, changes that need to be made to improve, and improvement requires change, as I often say, but seeing what weaknesses they have, I guess, and that kind of thing. So yeah, what could be done to change Italian football and Celtic? I'd love to attract the best possible players, coaches, coaching staff, directors of football, managers, and things like that, as I talked about before, especially for Italian football and also for Celtic to an extent as well. With Italian football, the youth matters more to me because I care about the national team as well. Italian football more generally, whereas with Celtic, if they had lots of money and bought players, it would be pretty cool to me because I don't really support the Scottish national team, although I wish them well in a way, but not anywhere near as important as Italian football to me. But moving on, as in the Italian national team, moving on, number 12, I suppose what they do well. I think they should continue to do what they do well. And thinking about Celtic tonight, and thinking about the St Mirren game on Sunday, most importantly, I think like it's a must-win game for me on Sunday for Celtic, and I think that I hope the manager will prove his critics wrong, and I think he's really got to improve. Like one of the problems is that he says performance is what matters and not results, whereas I think for Celtic, for teams like the Rankers, as I call them, and Celtic, winning is almost everything pretty much, and then the result, or certainly the result, is secondary to winning. I think for most clubs, but especially clubs like Celtic and our rivals, the Rangers, we have a massive competition with each other and we dominate our league respectively normally. Rangers used to, Rankers, as I call them, and we normally do now. So any manager who comes in and doesn't sort of win a trophy in his first season, it's seen as a bit of a catastrophe. Whereas with say Liverpool or even Man City to an extent, and certainly now Man United and other teams, like you're given a few seasons to win things. I think I heard a Man United support once say, well, I'm pretty sure I heard Man United support say once on one of their fan channels, which I watched just out of curiosity a while back, and he said that at Man United you're expected to do three things: one, play exciting football; two, develop the youth; and three, sooner or later at some point turn that into winning trophies. And with Celtic, you're not given much time, and this manager does not have much time to win Celtic supporters over. He's really got to win on Sunday and then I think the supporters who are getting on his back for this result and the one before will forgive him, I think, and move on if he starts winning a trophy like Sunday is what matters this week so much. And where the club can win trophies. So I hope he's up to it, and I hope he knows. I don't think he knows what he's got himself in for. I was going to say getting himself in for, but he's already got himself into that. So he's got to be stepping up to the plate and winning things. And I suppose that's the level which Celtic is expected to be at. And since I'm very competitive, I always want to win things. But if you're the manager of a country, a national team, normally you're given a bit of time because, people might take the Euros or continental competitions quite seriously, but you've got at least 2 years, if not 4. Like for me, it's different if you're trying to get through a qualifier, I guess, but if you're coming in at the right time, I guess you can have up to 3 or 4 years before you can get your team ready or whatever. The only problem is you can't buy better players, but with the club teams, you can buy better players, but you're not given a huge amount of time. Each league game, especially as I say for a team like the Rankers and us, is to win games. I don't know what I'm often conflicted as to whether to put we or us in speech marks, because part of me thinks it doesn't sound like I'm a real fan, but then I think I don't know, it just reminded me of something my brother said, like, why do people say we as if you're playing? But it is, we are connected to each other, so even if we're not playing on the pitch, we win and lose together. But some people say about Celtic with the you got to give the manager time, and win, lose or draw, we got to get behind the manager. But if we're not seeing results quickly, and if the supporters don't see results quickly, then I fear his time at the club could be very short. So I do have fears about that. And on that note, moving on to 13, I suppose the dyslexic trait, going back to dyslexia, is about I think it's been what Tim Ferriss. Sorry for those who might not have heard of him, but Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Work Week. I don't know a huge amount about him, but I heard him in an interview saying it's good to be pragmatically pessimistic. So he says lots of talk about positivity, which is really important, but also just as important is being what he calls pragmatically pessimistic. Complex words for me, but basically the idea is that you see what could go wrong in a business, let's say, for instance, and then you're in a position for when things could go right. So business people have to prepare for what could go wrong. I think it's similar with football clubs and managers, like getting injuries, for instance. I suppose I'm thinking a lot about Celtic because they're playing today, tonight. Match is just probably about to finish. But teams like Roma, Torino, Celtic or whatnot. So with Celtic, I think the supporters are not happy because investment hasn't been put in to buy the best possible players, and I have to think like strengthening the squad, because what if you get injuries? And I think we've had key players being injured, and I think that's part of why we're struggling compared to our usual players. But if you look at Celtic, Celtic's actually in a league, in a cup final, and second in the league, and also it's still in another club competition, and technically still in Europe, in European competitions, that is, of course. And yet the supporters, the fans, are very disappointed with the season so far, and including myself, are a bit nervous about what's coming along. And I have a lot of fears about the new manager. I'm not trying to stick to the topic of dyslexics, but I have maybe the club should have a dyslexic manager in the future, I'm sure, or coaching staff and whatnot, but with our out of the box thinking. But I know he's a bit like me, stubborn with when I make videos, I like them to be a certain way, so I do struggle to make those changes in spite of people saying whatever. But also I seem to have the Midas touch in reverse. I had my brother got me a microphone, but I seem to have broken that, damaged that, and all that kind of thing somehow. And then God knows how I've done that. But also one of my sisters got me a ring light, and I seem to have damaged that. So again, having a Midas touch in reverse. But I guess I think just get started and then hopefully improve, and then later I could maybe one day I'll have my own studio or things like that. But I suppose this feels more authentic, not airbrushed or anything like that. Like people talk about politicians being airbrushed or whatever. But yeah, my fears for the manager, I think of point number 13, my fears for the manager are, I wonder if he is the right fit. What you said about the performance really matters rather than the results. I do have my fears about whether he knows what he's got himself into. But yeah, for most clubs, being second in the league that they're in, I know people might say the Scottish League is a low level, but being second in the league and only like behind pretty much on goal difference, having a game in hand, so being able to have a good chance to catch up at least, hopefully. Being in a cup final and also being in another cup competition so far, I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully we can win that one as well. So I'd love to see us winning at least one trophy and preferably 2 or 3. As I mentioned before, I hope we can win a treble. I really do. But yeah, for most clubs, even just being in the position we are in, they would be happy with that position. But with clubs as competitive as Celtic and the Rankers, we're expected to be near the top and winning things all the time, or at least aiming to win those things. So the manager making comments about the performance being what matters rather than the results, I think, unless he says it's for like early days, but I think that sooner or later it could turn it against him. Hopefully not, but those are my fears. A negative story with Torino is they had the Superga air disaster, unfortunately, which was an air crash where I'm not sure if it's all the members of the team at the time. That was all the way in the 30s, the 1930s, obviously, but almost 100 years ago, actually, come to think of it. Where, about 90 years or so, 89 or so years ago, but probably closer to 88. But anyway, the team perished in an air disaster, and like still probably fresh to a lot of Torino supporters, or even Italian football generally, because a lot of them were involved in the national team, and Torino's never got back to that level. But yeah, so that was a negative thing, which I might cover more in part 3 and Struggle 4. Number 14, but at the same time, I wanted to talk about some of the negatives and my fears for Bro Wilfred, as I called him, as I mentioned recently. But also it is early days, and when Ange Postecoglou, Big Ange, came in, it took, I think, out of his first 6 games, he only won 3 of them, and then he started winning loads and doing really well. So sometimes a man just needs time, but I think it's really important to get the fans on his side and to get us feeling confident that he has to win against St Mirren, who we should be expected to beat. But you never know in cup games. But in a one-off game, I suppose you can never tell. But we should be able to beat them. I hope we really put everything into winning that as a final. So I definitely think the performance is secondary to making sure we see it over the line, defending right at the right times and scoring what we can, and making sure we're clinical, not missing chances. So it's pointless just saying like we had 20 shots and missed them all. I think we need to be able to put our chances away and defend as well as we can. So hopefully the boys, as we say, have the game of their life. I seem to be talking a lot more about Celtic, but obviously similar ideas for Italian teams as well. Torino obviously included, and the national team. As I say, come to think of it, on that note, with the Italian national team, I hope that they'll have the game of their lives against Northern Ireland, and then hopefully get through, and then have the games of their life again against Wales Wales or Bosnia and Herzegovina, or however you pronounce it. So I hope they give it their all, and in both cases, I hope the fans, even if they're nervous, chant and sing and get behind the team. And in Italy's case, the national team, everyone gets behind. I hope that everyone gets behind and chants for the team. With Celtic, I'd love for them to sing "Oh Brother Wilfred," at each game, and like all the possible fans, even if probably in their heart of hearts they don't feel he might be the man, because then you give him time, and then if he still can't get it right, after a while, unfortunately, the club will probably have to cut its losses, admit its mistake, and move on. I think that's really important, like not chasing losses and say, "Oh, to save face, I don't want to admit that we made a mistake." I think Celtic's been guilty of that in the past. Like I remember a Newcastle fan saying, you had to be right rather than move on and admit you're wrong. And I think that's really important in like business and in football and different areas in life, to say, "Oh yeah, I made a mistake, hold my hands up," and then try to change direction. I know I'm a creature of habit, but Going back again to the talents and skills and abilities that dyslexics have, problem solving is one I often mention. So troubleshooting, let's say, shooting those troubles down and hopefully helping Italian football and Celtic in the future. Although unfortunately, I fear it's probably not going to be. It's certainly not going to be quick enough for Sunday, and it might not be quick enough for the qualifiers that Italy's got to go through, the playoff qualifiers. But you never know in the case of the latter. But obviously, it's not going to be quick enough for Sunday. Yeah, in the future, hopefully, dyslexics can show how we can solve problems facing Italian football and Celtic, a strength and a talent and an ability, a strength, a talent and an ability that will help hopefully Italian football and Celtic in the longer run. Although I'm very impatient, I want to see Italian teams and Celtic winning trophies right now, in the here and now, and being world class ASAP. But I guess it will have to be ASAP, as I say. Number 15. I'm sure many dyslexics can also probably be very good at goal setting and helping Italian football and Celtic to set goals. And there was something else I was saying, point number 15, and I've sort of forgotten it. I mentioned it in the intro, but oh yeah, my favourite sports teams are, as I mentioned in part 1, I think I mentioned in point number 5, funny enough, but the Italian national team, number 1, secondly, Roma, a close second, third, probably AC Milan, fourth, I've only got these Milan caps because my brother went to Milan, so he got them for me kindly, which is very nice of him, of course. Fourth, all the Italian teams, other Italian teams joint, and fifth would be, or is, Celtic, and then another, I support the Indian cricket team and hockey team respectively as well, or as I put it, the brown teams as well, even though they're rivals like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, even though they don't always get along. But I know a bit biased on me, I don't know if I should have admitted that one, but I only support Italian football because I look Italian as well as I see it, I think, and I've supported them for a long time. But moving on, number 16, I'd love to know, as I say, what do you think we dyslexics, as dyslexics, we dyslexies, as I sometimes say, could contribute to Italian football teams like the national team, Torino, and other Italian teams, and also Celtic? I'd love to know what talents, as I mentioned in previous videos. Number 17, I do find it hard to imagine, but another trait we do have is imagination. But part of me can't really picture it, picture seeing us winning these trophies or whatever. But I guess I can. I sort of, obviously I'm talking about it, so I've thought about it. But I see imagination as like what I call mental imagination, where you just talk about something or think about something. Thinking about something is what I'd class it as mental imagination, and obviously then you can talk about it once you thought about it. As Walt Disney said, though, who apparently was also dyslexic, supposedly. I don't know what evidence there is on that. Check his spelling, but it's probably too late. I don't know. Maybe some old letters he wrote or school reports or whatever. Yeah, I don't imagine he got an official diagnosis, but and that was too late to give him one, perhaps, but posthumously maybe. But many people say he's dyslexic or was dyslexic, and Henry Ford and whatnot. But yeah, sorry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought again. I was thinking earlier on, I was really like, I don't know why it was, because I had croissants, so it wasn't that I didn't eat, which sometimes can happen, but I started like shaking and getting nervous, and my paranoia was playing up, and anxiety and depression, schizophrenia or whatever, and I'm not sure why that was, but I felt a bit on edge earlier. But I was thinking, I hope I'm not like that in my video. Sometimes I do feel like a panic attack or like go for an existential crisis, but now I'm just worried about not repeating myself or things like that. I had a few other worries, but yeah, so as I say, Walt Disney and Henry Ford supposedly were both dyslexic and are examples of great entrepreneurs, historical entrepreneurs with dyslexia, supposedly. Steve Jobs is another one. So I talked about like how we could fund Italian football, I was going to say dyslexic football, Italian football and Celtic FC. I thought of a team name like Dyslexia United FC, although I think one already exists. But anyway, Dyslexics Untied. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry, that was the point. Walt Disney said that if we can think it, if we can dream it, we can. Sorry, if we can think it, we can dream it, and if we can dream it, we can achieve it. I wish I was that optimistic and positive to say, like, I believe Italian football will become number one. Like, I often think that, like, if I only had the confidence to say, yeah, I will set up my own enterprise, my own not-for-profit MKS enterprises to benefit people in Africa, for instance, and Asia, developing nations generally. Yes, I will make Italian football great. Yes, I will make Celtic great, but I do struggle to have that positivity and conviction. But yeah, also I think of, I'm just trying to remember as well, I think of what I call picture/physical imagination, and I mentioned briefly, I think I mentioned things and I move on from point to point and forget to finish my list or my sentence. But yeah, I think that later on, I think, I forgot to say that before. I'm sure I didn't explain that properly, but I think of, like, us dyslexics have a very vivid imagination, and apparently we picture imagination as reality. So if I imagine something, I can imagine myself in a room or something. I mean, people might say, well, that's imagination, that's what imagination is, or most people have that. But I think we can almost see ourselves there at the time. Yeah, I imagine that. So yeah, I can't really have that picture or physical imagination, as I call it, picture/physical imagination, where I picture myself there and really imagine myself there and see it as almost like reality. But yeah, obviously I've imagined it by thinking about it and now talking about it. But yeah, so I dream that we will make Italian football world class and win, most importantly, trophies. I think that's the next level, obviously being world class and then turning that world class performance into winning trophies, being part of a team. Like, teamwork makes the dream work. I think people say, like, entrepreneurs and people like that, people who get wealthy are team players, not individuals. So as I say, teamwork makes the dream work. Whereas most people, like, if you're an employee or a sole trader or a small business, you're either a part of a small team or you're even only on your own. And I think something that sounds really good is like when people want to be the smartest person in the team, they say if you want to get a job done right, you do it yourself. Whereas I think that probably keeps you small. As I say, if you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room. And perhaps another trait that dyslexics have is being able to sometimes be a good judge, or many times be a good judge of character. And that's important to know who you trust or whatever, perhaps. Obviously, we don't always get it right. And some of us might not be very good at that. I think I can be sometimes, but not always. Sometimes I'm a bit too naive and trustworthy. But yeah, perhaps knowing our limitations as well, and we want to work with people who are smarter than us and that kind of thing, or driven than us, or whatever it might be, or at least as driven or whatever. But yeah, if you're a smart person, or if you're in the wrong room or whatever. But yeah, moving on to 18. As I say, I wish I was positive enough to say, yes, I will set up MKS enterprises. Yes, I will help Italy to win most World Cups. Yes, I will help Italian club teams like AC Milan, Roma, Torino, and others win. And yes, I will help Celtic to win and things like that. But I do struggle to have that optimism and positivity, and maybe even some might say arrogance. But yeah, I want to be cautiously optimistic, but I'd love to be an optimist and a positive person. But yeah, I think there are many dyslexic traits, dyslexic thinking styles that can help, and talents. Number 19, on the subject of talents, I talked about in part 1, and I've thought about recently, like Dyslexics Got Talent and talent shows and things like that. But in Italy's case, and for Celtic, I would love for Italian football and Celtic to invite us to come and work with them and to improve them and share ideas on how to help them to win and be world class, and to win and even dominate football as much as possible. And number 20, as I said before, helping them to practice and train, sharing our tic-tacs or tactics even. And I'm out. Peace and love.